Amber Heard. Court failure. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. I've explained to you in parts past some of this series about Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, why she has not crawled away under a rock somewhere following her defeat in court. Of course, as she continues with her quest for justice in her eyes, it behooves me to continue to explain to you what's actually occurring with regard to her behaviours to enable you to understand precisely why she does as she does. We see this through the prism, of course, of her narcissism, and that many people fail to understand why she behaves in the manner that she does because they don't take into account the fact that she is a narcissist. It's worth noting, and you'll no doubt be interested in, the fact that, of course, with many videos on YouTube, they are monetized. And that means that when a video is uploaded, I have the choice to determine whether I should monetize the video or not. And if I do, then of course it must follow certain standards which are in accordance with the community standards utilized by YouTube. For instance, if one is showing something which is sexual in nature or particularly violent or using a lot of profanity, then it becomes flagged and may be of either no monetization or more usually limited monetization, so that limited ads would be shown upon it, as certain advertisers would not want to be associated with that type of material. However, what is interesting is that every single video that's uploaded in relation to Amber Heard is always flagged as limited advertisements, pending the necessity of an appeal, and then every single time, having appealed against this determination by the algorithm, when a human looks at it, they realise that it is entirely suitable and can be fully monetized. So it's evident within the algorithm that I think you've been interested to know that YouTube, anything to do with Amber Heard, is automatically flagged as being of limited ads until it's dealt with by way of appeal. You can draw your own conclusions as to precisely why that has been done, but it would link into, of course, the wider need for control from a narcissist to deal with adverse comment about her. With all of that stated, here we are, and it's summer time, at least those in the Northern Hemisphere, and no doubt you have been dealing with the irritating buzz of the occasional wasp that has wandered by, perhaps into your office, into your annex, into your house. And as you've been sat there ruminating on whether you should get your rolled-up copy of a newspaper and smash it onto the wasp, knocking it into oblivion and then removing its carcass outside, or deciding you just open a window and expect it rather to fly away, you'll no doubt remark upon its capacity for keep banging its head against the glass in an attempt to bid for freedom and shaking your own head thinking, stupid insect. Bump, 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 bump against the glass, not finding its way out. Why do they never learn? Why do they repeatedly keep bumping against the glass thinking they're going to get outside rather than flying around and actually finding an exit? Well, it's similar behaviour with Amber Heard. You may well look at her and think she is like that irritating buzzing wasp that just won't go away and keeps banging its face against the glass. She, of course, won't go away because her narcissism won't let her. But she's suffered yet another setback with a court failure. And the Evening Standard reports Amber Heard loses bid to overturn verdict in blockbuster Johnny Depp defamation trial. A judge said a juror issue raised by Heard was irrelevant and that she cannot show she was prejudiced. Amber Heard's motion to have the verdict of her blockbuster defamation trial against Johnny Depp thrown out has been rejected by a judge. The Aquaman star's legal team filed a motion earlier this month arguing the verdict that she had defamed her ex-husband was not supported by evidence. As you'll recall, this is because, seen through her narcissist lens, her narcissism tells her that she is the victim, that she is right, that he is the aggressor, and therefore the jury have got it wrong, and therefore that is a legitimate basis for appeal. The article also states they also alleged that a juror had not been properly vetted. However, Judge Penny Ascarati rejected her legal requests on Wednesday. The judge said the juror issue specifically was irrelevant and that Heard cannot show she was prejudiced, so it fails on 2 accounts. It's not relevant, and even if it were, she can't demonstrate that she suffered any prejudice of that. Now, of course, it may well be that her legal team had advised her of that point, but she ignored it and insisted they still appeal. It is very common for a narcissist to ignore the advice of their lawyers because it doesn't accord with what they want to hear. And this is why you'll often find many narcissists swap their legal teams, as often as they might change their underwear. Simply, the lawyer says, "We're not going to do that," or "I advise you against it," and that is a threat to control. And therefore, rather than the narcissist go, "Well, actually, here I am paying top dollar for an expert in their field to utilise the benefit of their expertise and experience to advise me properly as to what the appropriate course of action is, maybe I ought to listen to them and take their advice," the narcissism causes, particularly lower echelon narcissists, to go, "You're incompetent," or "My spouse has got to you," or "My opponent has bribed you," or "You don't fully understand the intricacies of this case," or "You don't know him or her like I do. You have to trust me on this. I know them better than you, and I know how they will react, and they'll back down if we appeal, if we bring this claim, whatever it might be." And of course, the narcissist, high-handed, haughty, arrogant, entitled, believes they know better than the expert. Now, of course, some of the ball-washing bastards that are lawyers do get it wrong, but more usually they're right, and it's the client, if they go against it, who's wrong. And often those difficult clients, not always, but often, are narcissists. Here is no different. Amber Heard may well have instructed them to proceed, even though she's had advice to the contrary, or she has been so adamant and convincing that her own legal team have bought into the myth that she propagates as to what's happened to her. And thus they bring the ill-fated appeal, and, unsurprisingly, it has failed. The article continues by explaining the 36-year-old actress still has the ability to appeal the verdict to the Virginia Court of Appeals. It wouldn't surprise me if she would do so in order to nullify the threat to control posed by the defeat. Depp, 59, sued for $50 million in Fairfax County after Heard wrote a 2018 op-ed piece in the Washington Post about domestic violence, in which she referred to herself as a public figure representing domestic abuse. The article never mentioned Depp by name, but his lawyer said several passages in the article defamed him by implication, by referring to highly publicised abuse allegations she made in 2016 as she filed for divorce. Heard then filed a $100 million counterclaim, also for defamation. By the time the case went to trial, her counterclaim had been whittled down to a few statements made by one of Depp's lawyers, who called Heard's abuse allegations a hoax. The jury awarded $15 million to Depp and $2 million to Heard on her counterclaim. The $15 million judgment was reduced to $10.35 million because of a cap on punitive damages in Virginia. Heard's lawyers said in court papers that the $10 million verdict was unsupported by the facts, delusion, and seemed to demonstrate that jurors failed to focus on the fallout from the 2018 op-ed piece, as they were supposed to do, and instead just looked broadly at the damage Depp's reputation suffered as a result of the alleged abuse. Depp's lawyers, though, said the damages were supported by testimony from his agent and others. They said the precedents cited by Heard's team to support her arguments are decades old, and none involves an international A-list celebrity. And accordingly, rather than going away and licking her wounds and getting on with her life and perhaps focusing on doing something constructive, Amber Heard continues to shout foul, unfair, not right, and maintain that she is the victim. And she does so, not fixed with the knowledge that she is actually wrong, but she honestly believes and maintains as a mid-range narcissist that she, of course, is the one who has been wronged. And thus she will continue, and she may well land herself in more hot water. And indeed, there's more problems ahead for Amber Heard, because, as a consequence of, she's actually finding herself now on the receiving end of another claim. How are we dealing with that in a future part? But this latest setback will, of course, have amounted to a threat to her control, which she will have dismissed by basically thinking the judge doesn't get it, the judge is biased, and that somehow Johnny, of course, with his far-reaching tendrils, has manipulated everybody because he is an abuser, and he continues to abuse her by not now turning around and saying, well, yes, I won, but actually let her off the hook. She continues to need to nullify the threat to control posed by this defeat, but only continues to make life more difficult for herself, which is typical of many lower echelon narcissists. I've explained many, many times. Give them enough rope, and they'll continue to hang themselves. We will, of course, be addressing the fact that she's on the receiving end of further litigation, but for now, this court failure is another threat to her control, another setback, but she is still not going to accept it. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.